Okay, good morning. End of another week. So thank you to everyone who's got in touch with me over the past week or so. I've had some really good feedback from most of you. Thank you for all your submissions, much appreciated. And anybody that's given me any tips or ideas of what they'd like to actually do. Had a few suggestions for a few more scenarios, so thank you very much for that, much appreciated. Okay, I'd like to go through then just using my list of the answers first of all for this week's work that's been completed. So then, when you've done your testing of your stack and you come to do your trap seal testing, what you need to do then with your trap itself is get a matte black painted stick, which is called a dipstick, dip that into the trap then and take a measurement of how much water is going to be left in the trap. So that's after you've done your test. So you do your 3-minute test at 38 millibar. Once that's passed, with your trap, get your dipstick, dip it into the water. Obviously it's got to be matte, painted matte black, for the simple reason is the water line will show up on there. Once you've done that, take it back out and you're checking the measurement. So there's contradiction terms in terms of measurements, and that's where we have to be a little bit careful. So the minimum that is allowed is 25 mil, but the acceptable level more than likely would be 75. If you've got 25 mil in, that's a stupidly small amount. So 75 mil is the answer I'd like you to do in terms of any testing, but it does have a footnote of 25 mil being allowed as a minimum, but I'd say that's quite low. Okay, the next one then, when you're looking at number 2, that's to do when we were looking at any kind of drainage, and we were looking at the types of PPE and things you might require. So big gauntlets would be good. So in terms of waterproof gloves, that would be an ideal thing to wear. Obviously some goggles I would suggest, because you don't want to get any splashback or anything happening untoward. You don't really want that going back into your eyes of some description. Depending on where it is, now if it's in a front garden, it might be worth cordoning the area off. If obviously there's kids playing, etc., etc., you don't want them getting any near any of the work that you're doing. If it's in somebody's back garden, let's say on a patio or something very similar, you'd be fine. There'd be absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. So just think of those in terms of PPE. And then how do we go about doing it? Well, it's the logical way of doing it. So one thing I would check for is any surrounding trees. Now that might sound very strange, but if you've got lots of tree roots, they can actually grow into a manifold, block the manifold up completely, and then you end up having to cut them out plus get rid of all the waste. So I've done that on many of occasions. So looking at the surrounding areas might give you a little bit of a clue. If there's a big tree somewhere near or something very similar, then yeah, you'd probably find something like that would probably block it. Or it could just generally be a blocked manhole in general terms. So it's not a pleasant job to do. It's a job you really want to do at the end of the day, and then just go home and have a good shower, wash and disinfect everything. When we come to disinfection, if you had to use drainage rods, and some of you have mentioned it, so thanks for that, it's appreciated, you need to disinfect your drainage rods. So it's a bucket of bleach and dropping them into it and getting them completely clean and getting them sterile. You do not want to leave them, don't try and reuse them as they are. Okay, number 3 then was looking at waste pipes being connected together. Can you do it? Answer's yes, you can, but you'd have to use an anti-vacuum trap on at least one or both appliances to do it. If you didn't, you might get a gargling from the basin, and that will give you a problem there. You have a callback straight away. So yes, if you've got anti-vacuum traps, no problem at all. Perfect. Question 4 then. Well, this was the scenario. So the scenario was, if we just revisit it very quickly, somebody's got a wash hand basin in a property, and obviously it's been rented out. It's been vacant for 2 or 3 months now. They've come back in, found the smell at the basin. What's the issue? Well, the issue will be evaporation. So water will evaporate from the trap given the right conditions. It's fairly rare, but can happen. So if it's a warm day, a south-facing room where the sun is coming through into the window, it is real possible to do that, to that to happen. So how could we fix it? Well, there's 2 easy cures. One, just get some water back in the trap. Job done. And secondly, if they've got a plug, time to put the plug into the waste. That would be easy, because then it'll stop the evaporation because the plug's there. So nice, easy, simple things to do, and easy ways to get around it. Okay, so what I want to do is move on to next week's work. So there's 2 parts to this. So I'll explain part 1 very clearly, then I need to explain part 2 to you, just to be really careful that we understand what I'm asking you to do. So let's look at part 1 first. Part 1 then is all to do again with a little bit more sanitation. So we are getting towards the back end of the unit. Now I'm aware we've not done the exams, and I'm aware that we need to do some tests if required. So in terms of testing, part 2, I will tell you where to go and actually take a mock test. So it's not an actual test, it is nothing to do with the BPEC, it's not going to go towards the qual, it's a mock test to see what we've done. What I need to make sure is that happens really, is that every bit of work that we've done you've understood and you're able to answer some questions. So let me start with part one, what I'd like you to do. The first question is about AAVs. Now I won't say what an AAV is, I'm going to let you work that out. But what I want to know is, what are they and what do they do? Now it's all in relation to sanitation, so it's nothing to do with air release on pipe work in terms of copper. It's nothing to do with that. So it's an AAV. What is it and what does it do? They're the two key things I need you to know. Second thing is then stub stacks. Where do you use them and why do you use them? So I need those two answering as well. So where do you use them and why do you use them? So again, put an illustration in the stub stack and the AAV. That would be really good. Those two are very closely linked. So if you find the area for the AAV, you'll more than likely find where the stub stacks are. Other question for number 3 then is waterless traps. So I want you to find some waterless traps. They are on the market. There's plenty of them out there. And I want you to find what they are and state how they operate. And then I'd like you to put why and where would you actually decide to use them. So that's waterless traps. What are they? How do they operate? But also, why and where would you actually decide to use these waterless traps? So have a think of those, and again, some illustration please would be really, really good. Okay, here's a scenario question, because I know some of you like these scenarios. So this scenario is going to be slightly different. Customers called you and they've complained that over a period of time they've noticed that the water in the basin in terms of the trap is getting less and less, and they start to get these foul smells. So it's nothing to do with what we've done before, but how they've rectified it, they've put some more water back in, but they use the basin on a daily basis. So they put the water back into the trap, no problem, and then after 3 to 4 weeks they start getting a horrible smell again and they have to repeat the process. So they get a lot of smells coming in. Every 3 to 4 weeks they have to put water back into the trap or flush it through again, and then slowly but surely over time what they tend to get is those foul smells coming back in. So that what I want you to do is work out what's causing it and how do you fix it, and it's nothing to do with evaporation because we've already done it. Okay, so please make sure you're okay with that scenario. Okay, the second part that I'd like you to do and this I think you'll enjoy. Now this you can do on a mobile phone. So you need to go to a website called Socrative. That's Socrative. Socrative. Go on to Socrative and there will be an area where you can log in as a student. And I want you to do your login as a student. So basically it sets your account up. Now when you go onto Moodle, you'll obviously find this video, but it's underneath there or near to it you'll find a Word document, and the Word document gives you an illustration of how to set up that account in terms of being a student on there. Now what you'll be pleased to know, what I'm going to do is launch some of these questions that I've been preparing this week. So the first set of questions I've got is obviously on sanitation. They're all multiple choice. You can press the answers online and it will give you an answer whether you're right or wrong, and if obviously you're wrong it will tell you, and I've put a description of why you were wrong and what the answer is. So it's very clear what you need to do. You need to read that document on Moodle that I'm going to put on there. You need to follow the link in terms of Socrative and how to set up your account. Once you set your account up, then what you need to do is actually have a go at the test. Now what I want to do is get everybody to do the test because I want to see what scores you're going to get. Now I can log in as a teacher and I can see who's taken part, when they've taken part, how long and what score they've got. So I do want that to be done. If you've done the first set of questions, I'd like to email me and I'll release the second bank of questions. So I only want to release the first 30. The second bank has 20 in. So you do the first 30. Again, you can have more than one go at it, that's not a problem, but we need to be hitting 60% or more. Now more obviously is better, and you know why it's 60% because that's what our pass rates are set at. So please make sure you have a go at it. Okay, and I will be following up and chasing that up to make sure it's done. So just to recap then, we've gone through the answers, so we should be reasonably okay now with your answers. And in terms of what I've asked you for, I've asked you about the AAV, what that does, why and where do we use it, illustration please with it. Stub stacks, where and why do you use a stub stack, again close relation to an AAV, again an illustration would be wonderful. Then I've asked you about waterless traps. What do you do with waterless traps? How do they work? Why and where do you use them? So again, an illustration would be brilliant. And then I've given you the scenario about the customer with the basin. And with that basin, they get a foul smell every 3 to 4 weeks, but once they run some water back through the trap, it seems to be fine for at least another 3 or 4 weeks, and we've said it's nothing to do with the evaporation. Okay. Once you've done those and submitted that work, then it's time to go on to Socrative, follow the links that I'm giving you on Moodle on the Word document, set your account up, and then follow the instructions as clearly written on the Word document. I've made it quite straightforward for you. Okay, so any questions, etc., please drop me an email, please send me a text or give me a phone call. Either way is not a problem at all. Okay, hope you and your families are really well, and hope you find this work quite enjoyable. Any feedback on the Socrative would be good. I have used it before, but it's been quite a while. Previous groups have really enjoyed it, so if you have some feedback on it, please drop me that as well. Okay, take care of you all. Thank you.